Welcome to the FuelHer Energy Podcast, where we share the untold yet inspiring stories of women from various sectors, from energy to business and entrepreneurship, from philanthropy to politics, from health to education. The FuelHer Energy Podcast features candid conversations with industry experts, trailblazers, and leaders. These stories are shaped by grit, resilience, and an unwavering desire to break beyond the status quo. Each episode will be packed with actionable advice, motivational stories, and expert insights to help women fuel their ambitions, overcome challenges, and thrive in every aspect of their lives. I'm your host, Jamisi McCalman. If you are now discovering me, welcome, and do feel free to follow me everywhere at Jamisi McCalman or visit my website at jamisimcalman.com and get to know me a little bit more. We want you to be part of the conversation. Ask your burning questions, share your key takeaways, and join our community by using the hashtag FuelHerEnergyPodcast. At Animac Media, we are deeply committed to inclusivity, hence we are thrilled to partner with National Sign Language interpreter Miko Wanya Israel, who has joined us to ensure that this podcast gets into the homes of the deaf community. No one, and we mean absolutely no one, will be excluded from the conversation. Executing a project like this takes a village, so a heartfelt thank you to each of our sponsors, Ansa McCall, Morgan Investments Inc., Axis Investments and Consultants, Global Health Supplies Inc., and Praetorian Security. So who will be our first guest? We cannot talk about women in energy without talking about a young woman who is leading the charge, a strategic planner helping companies and governments on their path to digital transformation. An account manager at Halliburton, I say she is the carrier of grace, just as her name suggests. She is none other than Grace Hutson.
I'm probably going to hire you to introduce me at any forum going forward.
Hire me, girl. Book to the busy. It's an honor to have you as our first guest. I have been observing you for a while from a distance, and I've always admired the way you carry yourself with so much grace. And that's why I introduce you. You are a carrier of grace, just as your name suggests. And I look at you and I'm in awe of all that you've been able to accomplish. When I see you, you can be a bit reserved, but there's this confidence that you walk in whenever you walk into a room. Let's go back a little bit to your childhood, your personality. Was this always who you are as a person?
I would say I've gotten better as I got older, but going back to my childhood, so much of what I represent now, especially the confidence, the grace as well, it's definitely who I was when I was much younger. My childhood was, I think, by far the best childhood one could ever ask
Yeah,
for.
tell us
I'll,
about
I'll just
that.
give a little quick bits. Every summer, I would be in Burpees, West Coast Burpees. My mom's family is from Belladrum. And the life there was one where we would wake up early in the morning, go to the cow pen, take the cows out, chase them up the back dam, make sure they come back later in the day. We had access to fresh fruits and vegetables. We would go into the farm, get the stuff to eat. I learned how to pluck a chicken, and that did a lot for my confidence as a teenager, and it gave me street credibility or village credibility that yeah, she can pluck her own chicken or kill her own duck or something along that line. And I had a community of all of my cousins, my aunts and my uncles. It was probably nearly 30 of us. All of the grandkids used to just go over to grandma's house in the summertime. And that experience in Berbice really shaped a lot of my childhood. How did it do that? I had to learn the importance of working with difficult people at that age.
Okay.
My cousins were difficult. Learning how to take direction from my older cousins, I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to deal with being disciplined because my grandma used to take a twig or take a, what we call it, the whip. Take a whip. I used to get whipped. Um, And I had to learn how to adapt even at that age. And that was maybe when I was like maybe in 8, 9, 10, going on to that. And then when I got into my teenage years, the transitions are happening. Okay, I realized that, okay, I'm attracted to, to like I wanted the attention of males. And then I had to learn how to curb that. Well, I learned through the guidance of my mom and dad because they got really involved at that time. I also have to add that my mom and dad weren't always around. They lived in another country before we were able to join them. But all in all, it was a great childhood. I remember the times when I so badly wanted to be independent. I was accustomed to getting a stipend from my parents, but I was like, I want my own. I kid you not. Once upon a time, I used to go to Le Penitence Market, Annandale Market, and I went to Lusignan Market once. What happened is after Hurricane Ivan in the Cayman Islands where my parents were, they had sent back a big container with a bunch of beach shawls. And I'm like, these things are so gorgeous. I'm going to sell them and make my own money. I walked around the length and breadth of Diamond, New Houses Scheme, with my market bag. I went to my neighbor. I got shawl for $200. I was selling shawl, and then we were like, no, we need a bigger place to go to. And this is me and my older sister, and we decided, hey, we're gonna go to La Penitence Market. I made so much money, and then I went to another one and another one until I eventually sold everything.
So you've always had that entrepreneur
Yes.
mindset.
Yes.
I love that. And
Yes.
as you're talking, your childhood sounds familiar to mine because I grew up around my cousins, my grandparents, my grandfather, my paternal grandfather was known as cowman. So he had the cows and the chicken. And then my maternal grandfather in Essequibo, he had the ducks, the chicken. He would go to the back dam and the crab, and we would go in the canal and we would feel for fish. And so I can relate so much to that. But how has community, that familial community, really shaped where you are now?
So because of that foundation, there wasn't a thing such as really failing or making a mistake. You would have done things that were wrong, but how that was dealt with was with a greater dose of encouraging curiosity as a child versus a punishment for doing something wrong. Because of that community and the safety that I had in that community because they were family, I knew that there was always older people who were looking over me or looking after me. And because there was a gap in the ages too, if I needed advice, I could have gone to my sister, I could have gone to my older cousins, males or females, to navigate whatever challenge I had at that time. Whether the challenge had to do with, plucking a chicken or climbing a coconut tree, there was always someone there. And I lend to that, I take from that in my, right now, in the experiences that I've had over the last maybe 15, 10 years, I have a community too. I have a community of friends. I have my family members. I haven't seen all of my cousins in a while, but now I also have a community of mentors and coaches and sponsors, people who made it their responsibility to help me and to ensure that I'm able to get to the goal that I need to accomplish in a way that I don't necessarily have to go to the experiences that they do. So there's so many similarities based on what happened in my childhood and the community I had and the community that I also have now.
So we're going to talk about mentorship shortly, but I want us to look back at that entrepreneurship mindset that you had, that business mogul mindset that you had from a teenager.
Yes, you can say teen.
A teenager. How did that transition to an adulthood? Because we know that now you work in the energy sector, but that's not where you started. So tell us a bit about that journey.
Well, from my teenage years, I was not only involved in like selling my own product. My mom had a business. I was involved in managing that too. So I got a lot of experience from that. I learned how to manage money. Whenever my parents would send money, it will come to me, and I would need to make sure the money, we budget the money in terms of how we will spend it. And then when I started working very early. It was maybe 15 or 16 because I left school very early. And all of those jobs that I had, I learned so much because for me, I knew that I always wanted my own business. And I was able to accomplish that at a very early age. And now it became a family business. So I learned a lot from those businesses. And then the job that I had before I joined the industry, I was working with a French-Irish company, KN Surset. And I was managing their office. And prior to that, I was also managing the office of a media house, a renowned media company in Guyana. And all the experience that I have as it relates to operations management, marketing, human resources, managing people, strategic management, I was able to bring all, I will say at the time it was about 7 years of experience into the opportunity that I found with Halliburton. I remember when I was hired for the job, when I told my friends what I was applying for, I remember one of them asking, like, how are you going to fit that? I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity because here I will be able to blend together all the things that I've learned in international relations, which is my undergrad. And I did do an MBA with a focus in international business strategy. And then I also have my experience from business administration managing companies. So I was able to bring all of that together into this melting pot to be able to execute my responsibilities in the energy industry, because so much of what I do requires me to leverage a lot of the skills learned on my everyday job, and also to tap into the knowledge that I gained doing international relations, such as diplomacy, negotiations, understanding energy security, understanding food security, understanding so many geopolitical impacts that is a very big part of the energy industry today. So for me, it works perfectly in the way that I'm able to do my job today.
So you did not start, the energy sector is not where you started. What was the fuel or the catalyst that pushed you into this sector that says, hey, this is where I want to be. This is where I want my career to really take off and to make an impact. What was the catalyst?
Well, I'll start by saying this. The energy sector, I did not look at it as a final destination. The way that I live my life, I am committed to a purpose, and that purpose will be realized in various assignments in various seasons in different places. I knew that as part of the big picture, the energy sector will be part of it. How did I know that? I remember when I was probably second year in the University of Guyana, the topic we were looking at was energy security. And one of the things that fascinated me was the fact that a country who has energy security, who has achieved a certain level of energy security, it places them in a very prosperous position. And one of the things that also came out to me in that course was energy wasn't just about oil and gas and renewables. It's also about national security. It's also about geopolitical power. It's also about empowering communities, like truly transforming the lives of people. And I know you can relate when I say that, when we look at the impact it has had in Guyana. So at that point, I said to myself, if I can position myself to have some level of influence in some sector, I would want it to be the energy sector. I did not know at the time, obviously this will happen for Guyana, because for so long, we had discoveries in Trinidad. Well, Trinidad has a thriving energy industry for nearly 100 years or more than. And I know Barbados also had that on shore. Suriname had that on shore for 40 plus years. And Guyana was this one country that nothing was being discussed really about maximizing energy or hydrocarbon resources. So when I thought that I would still get into the energy industry in the future, I'll be honest, I did not think it would have been in Guyana, but I knew that I would have, whether it would have been in another country. And then when the opportunity came up, I was back in the Cayman Islands when the opportunity came up to take on a job in the sector. And I was like, this could be it. And so I applied, and the rest is now history.
The rest is history. Welcome to the Morgan's Investment Built to Last segment, designed to draw parallels between structural integrity in fabrication and building strong, lasting careers and businesses. I'm happy that you spoke about the other countries and they have been in the oil and gas industry for over 40 years, some 100 years. Guyana, this is fairly new to us, but the industry in particular, for a really long time, it has been a male-dominated industry. How did you navigate in this space where I guess you felt as though you have to prove yourself and breaking barriers as you enter into this space?
Thank you for that. Well, I'm happy to say that I've never felt like I had to fight for a place in the industry because the time that I came into the industry, in Guyana in particular, there are so many versions. I want to say whether it's version 1 or 2.0, various renderings or versions of the industry over a period of years. And the time that I came into the industry, conversations on diversity, equity, and inclusion were already part of the words or the language or the narrative around the industry. However, I had to recognize that I did not have a STEM background. Um, I I was not a geologist, geoscientist, petroleum engineer, none of that. But yet I had to operate in this industry, and the question was, how do I do that without overextending myself? Because one of the mistakes that I made, I was going above and beyond to prove myself, and I did not need to do that. So what did I need to do instead? I had to walk in the number one skill that I had from childhood, which is being confident. Effortlessly, authentically walk in my confidence, being firm in who I am, being clear on what my strengths are, my communication skills, all the skills that I have, and continue to use those and fill in the gaps. What are the gaps that I had to fill? One of them had to do with being able to adapt. I had to learn to adapt faster. Part of that adaptation had to do with how quickly can I ingest information, process it, make sense of it, and then go do my job. And something that would typically take me 24 hours to learn, I had to try to learn that in 8 to 12 hours. But what it did, it created an opportunity for me to challenge myself. Like, how adaptable are you? Because this industry is unlike any other I've worked in before, and this is a different level of working with international companies. The work culture and the ethics is much different from working with a local company, regardless of how big that local company or regional company is. The ethics, the business ethic, the work ethic that's required for working in this industry to succeed, it is different. It challenges you in all the right ways, um, and some bad ways too. But I had to learn to adapt so very quickly if it is that I wanted to survive as well as thrive. I say to survive because I almost suffered a burnout, but we're going to talk about that at a later time.
Let's talk about that now because I don't believe that mental health and burnout is something that is I still don't feel as though it's having enough attention. How have you been able to find that balance with your personal life, your professional life, and realize, as you said, you're overextending yourself and how did you curb that?
I remember this like it was yesterday. It was 2022. It started late 2021, but it went all the way into 2022. And I just had to come to a place to say, okay, Grace, you need to stop. Something has to change.
And give yourself
In
grace.
the, give me a high five for that. But what happened was I was doing too much. Because I needed to prove myself all the time. I also have to admit there were instances where I would go into a room, I might not get the attention that I needed from that room, even though I had the title. And for some, it was simply because of who I was. There are people like that. It's not specific to the industry, and I want to clarify that, but it's specific to certain kinds of people because you would find it in any sector. It's not specific to the energy industry. But I was just doing so much for long hours. I was not eating on time. I would skip breakfast. I would skip lunch, probably eat dinner when I eat dinner, quick bite, and I'm at it, keep going, because I needed to ingest so much information and I wanted to succeed. I wanted to be excellent in what I did. And the other thing is, to the point that you made where mental health and burnout don't get enough attention, I think a lot of people don't even recognize it.
Absolutely.
I didn't know at the time it was a burnout. The headache, the fatigue, the lethargic feeling, the tiredness, the migraines over and over, the loss of appetite, the anxiety. I am dreaming about myself in a way that is unhealthy. And it is disrupting my family life. Not that I'm married or have kids, but I still have my siblings and my dad. It disrupted that life. I was not able to see my friends a whole lot because, like, I'm busy, I got work. And I know that so many can relate to this, that, and it might not just be the energy industry, but sometimes the way that we work, because we don't have a balance, it takes away from our very essence. And unfortunately for me, I had to suffer that burnout so that I would learn from it and say to myself, Grace, you are never going there again. Now, well, I had a mentor at the time, and she was the one who highlighted, hey, this is a burnout. And I experienced it before. And she did not pick it up before because I was not honest.
I always say you cannot get help, the
If-
help you need, if you're not honest
Yes.
about the challenges that you are experiencing, especially when you are aware of the challenges, because there's some persons who, yes, they know that they need help, but they're not sure in the area that they need help with.
Can I just say that we need to dismantle the shame that is associated with needing help?
Absolutely.
I think the reason why so many people don't say, hey, I need help. Can you help me? I'm struggling in this area is because there's this shame, like, you know, I've tried to present myself as a person who has it all the way together and organized, and to say that I need help, it's almost condescending.
And sometimes we wait until our hands we're drowning, and the only thing you can see is your hands, or the tip of your fingers, and you can't really hear that you need help. But luckily, there's a lifeguard standing right there that just grabs you. And this allows us to talk about mentorship. Because how has mentorship in your community saved you? How important has it been in terms of the success that you've been able to achieve?
I have always been in the habit of working, 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 working all the time. Mentorship, I think, I don't want to, I'm conscious of my eyes getting watery right now. Mentorship has been the thing that has allowed me to shift my priorities in the right direction. I'll tell you how. If I can quickly just come back to this point of burning out. I had a mentor at the time, and because I wasn't honest with her, she didn't know. At the point that she recognized, the way that she coached me and gave me guidance really helped me to try to do that different way to help me recover from the burnout. Mentorship has been the highlight of my success. I cannot say that I would have been able to accomplish everything that I have to date if it weren't for males. I have to highlight males and females who decided to help me along the way, whether it's personally or professionally. I'll give one example. As women, family is important to us. Most of us have the aspiration of being married and having a family one day. The way I used to work, I was like, yeah, I'll get married at some point, family at some point. I just want to work, 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 start businesses, help people. That's how I was. And I had a mentor say to me, what are your priorities? I gave them. Family was nowhere in that. And she said, I want to tell you a story about a woman who climbed the very tops of an organization. She was married and she just kept working, working all the time. Eventually, her husband divorced her. Based on the picture that she painted, she said the woman's husband divorced her. And when he was walking out, he said, um, she said, oh, well, at least I'm no longer married. And he said to her, yes, you are married. You have always only been married to your work. And she said, as we continued the conversation, she clarified that that woman I was talking about was me. And I lost the things that were most important to me because I had no boundaries, I had no life balance, and all I did was work, work, work all the time. And she said to me, "You're young enough. Do not make that same mistake." And unwillingly,
Willingly.
I decided, okay, let me look at this differently. How do I create the space in my life for meaningful relationships based on what I know I want? I want to have a family at some point. How do I do that? How do I make times for my friends? Because part of the community that I need now to not burn out, friendships, I need them. How do I also make time to give back volunteering? Because for me, if you're not giving back and volunteering, what are you doing with your life? And how do I still make space to grow as an individual and do all the things that I want to do? Mentorship created a space where I had someone as a sounding board for every crazy idea that I had, someone to validate, someone to correct me that, no, you're going about this the wrong way, someone to bring sense to sometimes the confusion in thought that I had. Mentorship also connected me to incredible people. A lot of the people that I know now in the industry, it's because someone wanted to invest their time in me to help me, and they connected me to their network, and their network got connected with me, and they introduced me to their network. And so a lot of the women and the men that I know, it's through someone, and the value in that, it there's no price that you can put on it. So not only to help you to develop, but to expand your network, to just change the way you view life, learning from someone who has been before you. It is so valuable. I'm a firm believer the best experience you can have
It's from someone else's
is from
mouth.
someone else, because most times when you have it on your own, especially if it's a bad experience, you have to suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
So how about you learn the same lesson?
From someone who's already walked the path.
There we go.
Yeah.
I
And I
will
think
take that for 200, Alex.
in Pasco. And I think that's a lesson that so many of our women and our listeners and viewers they can take away from this. I have here in my hands A Different Energy, Women in Caribbean Oil and Gas, written by
Celeste
Celeste
Mohammed,
Mohammed,
yes.
and you have been a contributor to
Yes.
this book. And in talking about mentorships,
Mhm.
you said healthy female allyship, find a Celia. How have you found your Celia,
Yes.
which is one of your mentors, but how have you been able to shoot the ladder down and help someone else up in terms of mentoring others?
One of the things that Celia made clear to me, so for those who don't know, I I wanted to make Celia a word to describe someone who works with you and they take on the role of really guiding you. That is a Celia for me. That is a Celia. I have my own Celia. I hope people find their Celia too. But Celia made it very clear to me. She said, the one thing I need for you to do is to be able to do this for someone else. She didn't ask for a thing. And I thought, how impactful is this? Like, how selfless is this? And while I knew I always had the disposition of wanting to help people, I thought that I need to pay this forward. So as soon as I got settled in my job, the first thing was I need to find some mentees. And so I have, at any given time, I have two mentees based on, maintaining the balance. I have two mentees at any given time. And these two women are incredible. The first mentee that I had is a young woman. I'll call her name. She is a phenomenal young woman. Her name is Akila Andrews. Um, Akila is so talented, so beautiful. And I've been able to work with her. We have been able to work with each other because mentorship is it's not a one-sided relationship. Yeah. Yeah. There are things that she teaches me too. I'm like, you see these young people, you know? So I have Akila. I worked with Shanae for a little bit. Then I had this other mentee. Her name was Bahar. She's originally from Iraq, but she now works in Houston. I've been working with her, and I I just want to. What I say to them is, listen, do not make the mistakes that I made. Do not make the mistakes that I made. If you have a question, ask. And I might not be the mentee that can help you in this specific area of your life, but I'm sure I can contribute in some way, somehow. And my request to them is the only thing I need for you to do is find another woman to do this with. Expect nothing else. And that's the way that I continue to pay it forward. But how do we add the multiplier effect to that? When we talk about increasing the participation of women in the energy industry, and we're just going to talk about the employment perspective. A lot of women need to know that there is support available when they come to the organizations or this industry that is new for them, because for the most part, it's new. And one of the things that they can do is take advantage of what we would call, my company calls it employee resource groups. In most of these oil and gas companies, at least I can speak for the tier ones, Halliburton, Baker, Schlumberger, ExxonMobil, or SLB. A lot of these companies have women groups. It's important to be a part of those groups. Through those groups, there are mentorship programs. If you are already a part of one of those companies, my encouragement is to register for the mentorship program for sure. Find out about it. It exists. Outside of that, I'm a part of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Georgetown section. Society of Petroleum Engineers, it is the largest professional association for those that are involved in the energy industry. It has over 140,000 members globally in all disciplines in the industry. And there is a very robust mentorship program that's available through the association. So I encourage folks to sign up for that association, be a part of the mentorship program that they have. In the Georgetown section, hopefully in 2025, we will roll out a mentorship program that can really help the juniors coming into the industry to pair with a more senior person in the industry to teach you how to navigate most of the topical questions that you're likely to have. So what I would ultimately want is to create a platform where any young person, and it's not just specific to women, because young men, we've been mentoring lots of young men that are new to the industry, but any person, if I can keep it specific to Guyana, any Guyanese who's asking themselves, can I join this industry? And if I decide that yes, I want to, here is a resource that's available of people who are committed, willing, and able to speak with me consistently or for a fixed period of time to help me to achieve a specific goal. I want to ensure that that's available. And I'm happy to have the support of my company to do it internally. I'm happy to have the support of the SPE working with the other board members to ensure that it happens, and working with other stakeholder agencies, such as I know the Women in Energy I'll be part of. I think they will have an element of that. But if there's a way that we can just have this thing where any young person wants to come to, whether they're going to UG or some technical institute, that they can find a mentor to pair with, I think it will be phenomenal.
I love that, because there's one of my favorite quotes by Bishop Kwame Gilbert. It says, "No one succeeds in isolation of community and relationship." And so I live by that. It is my mantra. And so I'm happy that it is something that is at the core of who you are and what you do. Coming back to your book, Grace, I must applaud you for the way that you walk in your name.
Yes.
It's in everything that you do. Your Grace in name and nature. Tell us a little bit about your name, and then I want us to talk about this chapter in the book that says heal from toxic female relationships, the need for grace, and how you have been able to extend grace to within your work, grace to yourself, grace to the broken relationships that you would have experienced, because I know that there are women out there who are still healing from broken relationships. And I know, from experience, I think sometimes those friendship breakups, they hurt way more than the intimate
That is true.
the
That
intimate
is
breakup.
true.
And it can put you on your track. And then you have to find that passion again, that fuel to keep you going after that breakup. How have you been able to recover from that? And as I said, extend grace to yourself, see where you would have erred and where others would have erred, and extend grace to them.
Well, the first part about my name, there's a very interesting story behind it. My mom, when I asked her the story about, like, how did you come up with the name Grace? She was telling me the story of, she came up with the name at the time she was pregnant with me and she was experiencing a lot of favor. It was the year that she made her most money, right? So she knew that something supernatural was happening. And she decided she was going to name me Amazing Grace because that was one of her favorite songs at the time.
Sing the song for us. Sing the song.
No, I'm not going to embarrass myself. I'll stick to my day job. But she loved the song, and so she went to my dad and was like, "Oh, I'm going to name her Amazing Grace." And my dad was like, just like how I said no. He said no, and she was like, "Okay." She listened. She didn't name me Amazing Grace, but she decided my first name will be Grace and my second name will be Amacy, but Amacy means amazing. And so I thought of what would be an impactful way for me to introduce myself to someone.
Can I just say though, just smart woman, I see where you get your wits from.
Yeah, definitely. How do I introduce myself in an impactful way, in a way that people will remember, right? And so I was like, Amazing Grace. So when people ask most people when they meet me, how does she introduce herself? Oh, I'm Amazing Grace. I bet you they don't forget. Versus if I say just Grace. So Amazing Grace is the name that I adore. I walk proudly in it now. There was a time that I didn't embrace it as much, and my dad had to have a talk with me. But hey, your name is Grace for a reason. I had a nickname in my early teens. I'm not going to say what that name is, but there was a shame that I felt with my name for many reasons. And as someone was calling me that nickname and my dad overheard, he was like, "What's that?" I was like, "Oh, this is my call name, my nickname." He was like, "What? Your name is Grace. Do you know?" And he said, "Your name means favor and mercy, the ones that you get without asking. You need to walk in the fullness of that name." And my dad having that conversation with me did something to me that day. It was many years ago. And since then, I walked in the fullness of that name. I am Grace, confidently graceful. And I wanted to ensure that when people call that name and when I call that name, when you think about what it means to embody that name, that is who I am. And so thank you for the compliment. Thank you for the compliment. But on the subject of extending grace, one of the things that I loved about myself growing up is that forgiving came so easy for me. And I learned that people do the best that they can with the information that they have based on where they are at that given time.
Absolutely.
I also learned that you should never take things too personal. What people do to you is more a reflection of them than it is about you. And I had to learn to give grace and give it as swift as possible. I have struggled with female relationships for a long time. In primary schools, jealousy in primary schools, I had a challenge of sometimes not being able to fit in because of mixed heritage. I was either not Black enough or I was not Indian enough. And I had issues with a lot of the female friendships that I had at the time. But I was always quick to forgive them. And I know for so many women, the heartbreaks or the greatest heartbreaks or the most devastating heartbreaks that they've had are the ones with female friends, are the ones between them and their sisters, or between them and their mothers. And I remember when I was working with one of my mentees, she was telling me about an experience, and I said, even though sometimes it is said a woman is another woman's greatest enemy, you do not have to go through life thinking that that's how it's going to be all the time. And it starts with you.
Being
It starts
a good
with
woman,
you,
being a good friend.
not only you first being a person who is so self-aware. In the book, the chapter starts for my section, know yourself. You need to be so self-aware. You need to be so confident in who you are. You need to be present. You need to show up authentically as yourself. You need to remember the only person you're in competition with is who you were 5 minutes ago or who you were yesterday. You were created for a purpose that is unique to you that no one else can have. What you're created for, I'm not created for. And so because we have different purposes and we have different callings, me competing with you, it doesn't make sense. And because of that, I need to be able to see you and know that you in your excellence and your beauty and your confidence can exist and I can exist. And it doesn't mean that either of us are better than each other. It just means that we are two gorgeous, confident women going through life and we are succeeding and we're walking in excellence. I shared with her that's how she needs to see herself. And I said, you might have experiences with women who have not arrived at that place as yet. That place of maturity, that place of healing. And when you encounter them, do not become like them. It's so easy to become like them. It's so easy to say, oh, she hurt me, I'm going to hurt her back. I'm going to be vindictive. No. I think it was Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high.
And you also begin to hold back who you are at the core.
Yes.
You begin to look at how much you give, how much you extend
start becoming
yourself.
Transactional, yeah. I'm sure you've heard it many times. I'm sure you've probably had your own experiences too. But my encouragement to any woman who has experienced hurt at the hands of another woman, especially in friendships, forgive. Forgive and let it go and bless that person. It does not mean reconcile.
No,
I don't know the circumstances, but forgive. Yeah. Get it off your heart. When you see that person, you don't need to get upset, but you should be able to say, you know what, she hurt me. She might not have the awareness that she did, but God, keep her, bless her, cause her to prosper, do what, you repay that bad with good.
Yeah.
Good energy, good messaging, good thoughts. That's what you need to do, because otherwise we're going to be fighting for the rest of our lives.
But I also say this, and I've learned this from a tender age, that forgiveness is not for the other person.
It's for you.
But it's for you.
It's for you.
You're the one that's carrying that hurt. They are going about their lives happy, merry, boy blue. And you're there still stuck in that hurt and that pain. And so it is for you. Forgiveness is for you.
I was going to say amen.
Amen. We can say amen. We can say amazing grace.
Forgiveness is for you. You should never give another person that much power over you. So if you have the opportunity to forgive today, even if it doesn't feel like it, just say, you know what? I forgive them.
Yeah.
And keep it moving.
I like that.
So we talked about being a better person, but being a better sister's keeper.
Yes.
So when we talk about being a better sister's keeper, we're talking about cutting out the gossiping.
Absolutely.
The manipulation, the vindictiveness, all that stuff. Because there's no way that you can expect to live life in a way where those things don't happen to you when you are actively doing it to people.
You're making an environment. You're creating an enabling environment.
You're attracting it, as far as I'm concerned. So we need to look at the mirror every single day. How can I show up as a better person today? And when you work on yourself and you work towards showing up better, it is going to be felt beyond you. Other people are going to recognize it. As long as it's true and it's genuine and it's not just a facade, people are going to feel that change. So the encouragement is to definitely start with yourself. Change, as they say, starts with you.
Grace, as we begin to wrap up, we've heard where you started, where you're going. What would you say is the legacy that you want to leave whether it's in this industry or in anything that you do in life in general?
Specific for the industry, as I mentioned earlier, I want to inspire women and men, especially young people, to feel confident enough to enter into this industry and to dominate. And I mean that respectfully and humbly, dominate. I know a lot of us, we have a very timid disposition or a shy, oh, I'm just gonna, no, you can do it. There's the only thing that's setting you apart from the next person who's already done it. It's because you didn't get the opportunity at the same time. If they can do it, you can do it too. Your work ethic will make the difference. So I want every young person in this country to feel inspired when it comes to wanting to join this industry, for them to believe in themselves, to say, yeah, I can do it. If I want to enter into the energy industry, I can do it. It doesn't matter what my background is, STEM or non-STEM. It doesn't matter if I'm a male or female. It does not matter if I live in Region 9 or I live in Region 6. There is a space for everyone in this industry. And that's why I take the work of my advocacy very, very seriously. This is why I take mentorship very seriously, because mentorship is the gap. It's what fills, it's what bridges the gap on the two sides. I want to join, and this is the industry. How do you navigate this maze? If the industry is a maze, how do you navigate the maze? Mentorship is one of the ways, amongst others, that you can leverage to be a sort of a map for that maze that can help you to get through it without having to waste as much time when you're going through a maze and you run into the blockages. But you'll be able to get there a little faster with some guidance along the way so that you can avoid the bumps on that road. So for me, for the energy industry, is to inspire people to join. Outside of the energy industry, my encouragement is to inspire people to pursue personal excellence. It does not matter who you are. As I mentioned, everyone was created for a purpose. Pursue that purpose with excellence. When you do that, you're going to leave a lasting impact on others. Because when you pursue excellence in all that you do, it will extend beyond you. It's no longer, it wouldn't be selfish. You can't pursue excellence and be selfish. It doesn't work. You're going to want to lend a helping hand, and in doing that, you will impact the lives of people. And that's the kind of legacy I want to leave. I want people to be able to say, because of her advocacy, because of her encouragement, because of her inspiration, because of her words of advice, I feel a little bit more confident about what I want to do. Because she has shared with me how I can do it. She has shared the resources that are available, whether it's in Guyana or outside of Guyana. She has let me know that what I'm dreaming or thinking, it is possible. Because she has done it too. And truly, there's nothing so special about me that you can't do it as well. Your work ethic will make the difference. Oh, your work ethic and your faith.
And your faith.
Your faith will definitely make the difference.
How does your faith fuel everything that you do?
Oh, it is at the center of everything. It is at the center of everything. It is at the center of why I pursue excellence the way that I do. It is the reminder of it is the why. My faith, my belief, I'm Christian, I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ. My faith has been the thing that has kept me together, especially on the low days. I have to go back to the Bible. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? Because right now I feel like abusing somebody right now.
What would Jesus do and say in this moment?
Yes. And I'm like, okay, get it together. Rather than abusing, I'm going to pray for you. So my faith has been everything. My faith has been everything, So for so many people, their faith is based on something different. Whatever your source is, try to draw from that. Because if you just rely on everything that you can see, feel, hear, and touch,
you're going to go bonkers.
Sometimes you need something that's supernatural to just carry you through, because the challenges get real. and there's some things that you don't have the answers to, and the only thing that you have is faith, and you say that prayer, and you know that you know and you trust that God heard you, and you just keep it pushing. I do that on a daily basis.
We spoke about burnout, mental health, whether it is caused by your work, your hectic work life, or as we might have mothers who are looking at this, we have students who are looking at this. What advice would you give to any woman who might be running on empty and they need that push to refuel and to keep going and to know that you're going to be okay? You're just having a bad day or a bad season. What advice would you give to them to keep the fuel going?
The first thing, it would be to recognize that you're having a burnout, if we're going to call it that. Recognizing you're having that mental health experience, whether it's depression or you're going through a burnout. Having recognized that, listen to your body. What do you feel like your body is asking for? Is it rest? Is it to just, minimize the screen time? Is it to talk to someone? Like, you know your body better than anyone else. And always your body is telling you something. We just don't listen closely enough. So listen to what your body is saying to you. And always reach out to someone and tell them. It could be your best friend. It could be a sister, your parent, whoever's in your community that you trust. I am having such a hard time at work. I'm struggling with this responsibility at home as a mother. I am studying so much for CXC, and I feel like I feel exhausted. Talk to someone about it. And last, take a break. Even if it's just 24 hours. If you have the 24 hours, take a break. And the person that you talk to, let them know that you need help. You guys can flesh out what that help looks like. Take a break. If you need to go to the spa, go to the spa. I can't go a month without going to a spa. If you need to take a trip away from where you are, like just take a road drive, go to Linden, go to Burr Beach.
Change your environment.
Change your scenery. If that's what you need to do, if that's what you could afford to do, do it. But if I have to choose one advice out of all that I just said, talk to someone about it. Talk to someone about it. Talk to someone about it. Just let them know, and I'm sure you'd be able to get some advice. But whenever you feel that way, you do not need to deal with it alone.
A different energy, women in Caribbean oil and gas. As we said, you are a contributor to this book. Where can our listeners, viewers, get a copy from?
Well, I'm very elated to share that this book is available on Amazon. I think right now the price has reduced for the book, so get it as quickly as possible. You can also find it on Barnes and Nobles as well.
Awesome, Grace. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, for being our first guest. I also want to say happy International Women's Day to you. I want to say congratulate you for the work that you have done and the impact you have made and what you will continue to do, the strides that you will continue to make. I am proud of you as a fellow woman. I am proud of you as a Guyanese. I am proud of you, and just continue going. But of course, give yourself grace on this journey.
I will. But before we go, I also want to say congratulations to you for the FuelHer Energy Podcast. I don't want you to take for granted what this podcast represents. We talked a lot about having a platform where people can learn from the experiences of others. And much like you've had me on this platform to share my experiences, you are going to interview so many other phenomenal women. And don't take for granted how those stories will impact the lives of your viewers. It could be someone in high school, someone in primary school, a woman that's much more mature in age. There's no limit to who this will impact. And I dare say it will also impact the lives of men as well. So you have a very important assignment in doing this podcast for the lives that you will impact through storytelling, through asking questions, and just bringing out authenticity,
from the interviews that you will have with young guests. So do not take that for granted, and happy International Women's Day to you. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on this first episode of the Fuel Her Energy podcast. If anything that was shared in this episode resonated with you, feel free to share your key takeaways in the comment section. If you believe that someone can benefit from the advice, the nuggets that were shared, click that share button and let's help build a community and get the message out there and help a woman on her journey as we all fuel our energy together. I'm your host, Jamisi McCalman, saying thank you and see you next week, same time, same place on the Fuel Her Energy podcast. Bye-bye.